A typical sequence. Resuscitated reports for most faiths have a remarkable similarity in form, with many of them encountering the light at the end of the tunnel. But then the sequence diverges, because the identity of the light in most instances is based on assumption. It is not surprising to find cases of deception. Deception is in the good and not in the bad, and this is interesting. Both good and bad experiences are recorded in other faiths, and occasionally in those people with no faith at all. Near-death groups, the majority never dead in the first place, will be considered in a separate chapter because they are so varied. Dreams, drugs, accidents, life events, deathbed apparitions that seldom present complete analyzable sequences which otherwise typify the resuscitated clinical death groups. The bad experiences, they miss a step or two here and there and alter the sequence. They occur more swiftly, arriving rapidly, frequently leaving after a struggle. Since the negative sequence varies, let's first look at the sequence of typical good clinical death experience. 1. During clinical death, the person leaves his body, usually experiences a heightened sense of awareness and euphoria, and is often surprised to see the likeness of himself remaining behind. 2. Looking down, the individual may recall details of events in the room, noting specific items of clothing and conversation, but finding himself unable to communicate with the living. 3. The spirit of this person soon discovers another world, sometimes entering directly, but frequently through a tunnel. 4. Encountering a being of light, the person may undergo a pictorial life review. Thought transfer may replace the need for both speech and travel. 5. In a reunion of sorts, the person may have a chance encounter with relatives or friends who have died before. It should be noted the victim did not himself conjure or call up the dead, but went to the spirit world himself. 6. The world they describe is exquisite beyond words and thus defies adequate description. The specific environment varies. 7. A barrier, a fence, a wall, a river may be encountered, an obstruction separating what might be called the quote-unquote meeting ground from possible quote-unquote judgment ground. 8. Attempting to pass this barrier, the victim is returned to the body, often because it is quote-unquote not yet their time, being resuscitated or electrically shocked into the world of discomfort and pain. While the positive cases often wish they had not returned, the negative cases are invariably relieved. Value concepts and purposes change for both groups, especially the hell cases. Interestingly, some cases claim to be endowed with special psychic gifts or powers, and deciphering the good from the bad can be difficult. Next subchapter, how to collect cases. Since 8 to 11 million near-death victims have claimed near-death experiences, screening for interviews should be practical. A marked change in lifestyle should be evident, or you shouldn't waste your time on the interviews. Some of them could otherwise be nightmares, daydreams, or wishful thinking. But if the very life of the individual was changed, then make sure that the experience was not also influenced by drugs. Next, verify from the records if this was a clinical death or merely a near-death event. Clinical deaths cause permanent changes in those that have an experience. Compare your cases with the composite model just listed. Note that most drug-induced experiences do not depart from this world. They may see bugs, snakes, or other things crawling across the hospital room, but note that the events occur in this world, not another world. Robert Louis Stevenson had his experience in this world when he wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The inspiration was induced by the cocaine he used to alleviate the discomfort of tuberculosis. He was able to write firsthand about the struggle between good and bad, the stimulus of highs and lows allowing him to complete the entire book in just 3 days. Edgar Allan Poe and other composers, artists, and writers through the ages have used the inspiration of drugs for their work, as do many of the mediums today, a hell on earth but not elsewhere. Another distinction of clinical death from the dream states concerns the item of recall. The resuscitated individual may recall precisely what occurred in the room while clinically dead. They may be able to reconstruct the scene, identify persons in the room, tell where they were standing, what they said, and also what they were wearing. It was as if they were fully awake when they were completely unconscious, no heartbeat or breath. Lastly, analyze the experience by the sequence itself. The steps in the pattern of clinical death experiences are the same as if they had all had the same dream last night. No collusion or foreknowledge elicited.